we don't always have to run the longest distance or the longer race to reach that finish line. Like sometimes it's okay to run a bit shorter race and it's completely fine, especially it's an early season race. If you can gain that confidence back and you want to run the 50K, then that fitness will probably be there. It's not just going to go away.
And welcome back. We have Hayden Hawks joining for another round on For the Long Run. Hayden, thanks so much for taking some time to chat today.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's been a while since we've talked. Really happy to catch up here and hopefully have a good discussion today.
For sure. We're not in the sauna for this one, but it'll be fun either way, I'm sure.
Yeah, we don't need to be in the sauna. The winter has been so dry, both in Utah and Colorado. I think I ran today and it was like close to 70 degrees. And, it's the beginning of February, which is pretty crazy.
It's good for training, but bad for everything else, I suppose. I need sunglasses here. It's so bright in Colorado. and
yeah, good
too.
thing for me. I've been preparing for like a kind of a desert race, desert island race, Trans Grand Canaria, which is notorious for being like pretty warm, pretty hot towards the end of the race. So it's been pretty easy actually to get active heat training this winter. It's usually not like that. It's usually a pretty hard race to train for if you live in Utah, but it hasn't been that way this year. So hopefully I can go out to that race and actually be acclimated and feel pretty good in the heat.
And you're one that takes the heat training seriously. I remember a couple of years ago, you and Dan were coming over, and I remember there was one day you came over after like a 30-mile run, and we got in the sauna afterwards, and you were pretty cooked after that one.
Yeah, I think I got a bit dizzy in that one, but I like the heat. I love the heat. I grew up in the desert. I grew up in St. George, Utah, of course. So like, it's hot, in the summers, it gets up 120 degrees sometimes. Heat's kind of my friend. I love the heat more than the cold, that's for sure. But I've been trying to embrace the cold a little bit more. Yeah, like after UTMB last year and dealing with the cold in that race, I'm like, I need to toughen up when it comes to cold weather. I need to get better gear and I just need to embrace the cold a little bit more and be okay with it. I'm typically the one that like tries to leave during the winter and go to New Zealand or Australia so I can have the endless summer. But this year we stayed home and, tried to embrace the winter, but it's been kind of a summer winter. So
for sure. Well, before we get too far into it, for those who aren't familiar with you, who is Hayden?
Yeah. I think like towards the beginning of my career, I would have said like Hayden is a competitor. He's just laser focused on being an athlete and being the best athlete that he can possibly be. And, that still holds true, today. Like I am very laser focused. I'm the kind of person that just puts his head down and gets to work and just kind of like works really hard, to be the best person, the best athlete that I can possibly be. And, I'm okay with that grind. I'm okay with just getting up every day and getting to work. And I actually kind of enjoy that process and enjoy that grind. But I think like I've also transformed, as I've gotten a bit older, I've transformed into somebody who wants to be that person, of course, but wants to be more well balanced in my life, in what I'm doing, in how I'm treating others, in, trying to be the best father that I can be, the best husband that I can be. Of course, I got 2 kids and they mean the world to me. They're everything to me. And I just want to like spend as much time as possible with them and be a good example to them. And, that being said, like that's also kind of led into where I want to be a good example, not just to them, but a lot of the youth and the younger generation that I have, the chance of coming across in my sport and in my life. And so like recently I've had a lot of opportunities to be involved with some youth initiatives to really boost some programs that are trying to help the youth and help, I guess, foster the next generation, not just in running, but being outdoors, being on the trails, and just get them more healthy in that way, not just physically, but mentally. And then that's also led to like other opportunities to like coach younger guys and train and race with younger guys and just try and be a great example to them and teach them as much as I can so that they can have great careers as well. And that's been like a big focus of mine lately, is try to be the greatest example that I can possibly be, not just in word, but in what I do, but also like get involved in some of these opportunities that have arrived. Really try and be a good example to everybody that I come across.
Yeah, it's always been a differentiator of yours, whether intentional or not. It sounds like lately there's been more intentionality to it. But I think back to, was it Western States 2024 when you had the injury and you didn't finish, and yet you were still at the finish line that day and the next day. And I had a couple of conversations with people, and a couple of people noticed that you were out there again on Sunday. And I imagine it was very hard for you to be out there, but you were setting the example of here's what a professional athlete can and should be doing, and demonstrating that, there is more to it than podiums and finishing races. Talk to me more about that. What about your career? Like, what are you trying to demonstrate, or what do you want the next generation to actually be doing?
I think a lot of it is I don't have to try to be that way. That's just
Right.
who I am.
Who
That's
you
how I
are. Yeah.
grew up. I grew up in a really good community of people, that set those examples for me. I grew up with a dad and a mom that really set those examples for me. My parents have always been involved in their community and given back as much as they can. And, they've volunteered through our church, with youth activities, different things like that. And that's just who we are. Like I heard this thing with Dylan Bowman the other day where he was talking about how, I think he was talking to Killian Korth or something, and he was talking about how like spirituality and like that intention is like becoming a part of the sport, and it's becoming a strength for people within the sport. And like there's a lot of people that are kind of leaning towards that spirituality, whether that be meditation, whether that be religion, whether that be whatever it is. I grew up that way. I mean, like spirituality's always been a part of my life. Like I've never had to find that. Like it's just always been there. And it's something that I lean on, and it's something that has always guided my life. And it's been a strength to me my entire career. But with that spirituality comes giving back and being a good person and just trying to set a good example. And I don't necessarily have to try to do that. I just have to live that way, and it comes, right? And so that's, I would say, like, I'm not perfect at it, but that's just kind of who I am and who I've always tried to be. Like I enjoy that. Like I enjoy meeting other people, and I enjoy like, giving back, and like I enjoy just trying, I mean, not even trying, but just being that type of person, and like when you have kids, like when you have, a son and a daughter, like you realize how important that really is. And, they are such a blessing in my life to where they teach me so many things. They teach me how to love and be kind to everybody. They don't care what you look like or who you are. Like they become friends with everybody. A good example is when we go live out in Europe, like a lot of the kids that they're associating with when we're out there don't even speak English. Like they have no way of communicating with each other, but my son and my daughter just become best friends with them, even though they don't even know what they're saying. And it's just like, I think like that's the type of people that we need to be. And, we don't need to force it. We just need to live that way, and it will come out, And that's kind of, for me, I've thought a lot about like, what type of legacy do I want to leave when I leave this sport? Do I want to be known as the guy who won everything and, that? And it's like, yeah, maybe some accomplishments here and there will be cool, but that's not everything to me. Like, yes, I still want to win, and I am still going to be focused on that. But the legacy I want to leave when I leave this sport is that I was a good person, that I gave back, that I was a good example, of what it takes to be a pro, of what it takes to balance, being a dad and also being a pro athlete, or just what it takes to just be a man of faith, or, those type of things. Like those are the legacies that I want to leave. And if that means I get some wins along the way, then great. And honestly, I've seen that as I focus on those things, I actually become a better athlete and I win more and I stay healthier and I perform better, when I'm focused on those things.
Yeah, isn't it funny how that works? It's like if you don't squeeze the goal so hard, the goal becomes a little easier to actually attain. And whether it's, focus on something else, or the goal is like achieved from the facilitation of doing all the things that, make you a well-rounded human, with performance being a part of that, you get closer to ultimately like what people might obsess over specific to running.
Yeah, and you can be both. Like that's the thing is I think a lot of the time we think you have to either be this way or that way, and those two things can't marriage or come together, but it's like no, you can be a competitor and competition is healthy. It's okay to be competitive and, be in a position where you're like confident that you can win races and you're confident that you can go out there and be great. And, maybe sometimes that means you got to be a little bit mean or you got to be a little bit tough sometimes in certain situations. But then you can balance that out by when that competition's over, you can be, you know, a charitable person, you can be a friend, you can be a person that really gives back and does everything you can, for the sport. And maybe you let get down that guard just a little bit and you soften up just a little. It's okay to be both. I think sometimes we think we have to be one or the other, and that's not always the case. It's healthy to be both, and it's healthy to balance that out.
So you're also a running coach. So you work with a lot of people who are wanting to be better at running. And for many coaches, run guidance is just a small part of the guidance that the coach provides for people. So for someone who's listening and they're like, yeah, that sounds nice. I wish I could be more like that. I'd like to be more well-rounded. And I also, want to perform well. What's the guidance you would give to that person if they were your athlete? Like, how do you help someone fundamentally follow in your footsteps if it's not second nature to them?
Yeah, I think you got to first decide what motivates you first, right? And what your ultimate goal is. And if your goal is to win and to be competitive, then you got to get that out of yourself. And so sometimes that might mean pushing yourself. I'm as a coach, like there's times and places where I push my athletes. I really push them and I kind of harden them up or toughen them up and get them, to believe in themselves and be confident and know going into a race that it's okay to have that confidence. It's okay to be competitive. And then there's other times where I don't necessarily soften them up. I let them take their guard down and be like, right now it's just a time to have fun and to like go out there and just run some fun mountain miles. And you don't necessarily have to be competitive and it's okay to slow down and just have fun with it. And it's something that I have, myself instituted in my own training. I feel like when I was younger, and this actually probably led to a lot of injury, and even recent, this has led to some injury, is I felt like I had to be on and push myself and competitive, whether that be with others or with myself all the time. That even if I was going out for an hour easy run, that had to be quality. It had to be hard. It had to have this purpose to it. And recently, I've learned to balance that out to where, like, I actually have hard days and I have easy days. And on those easy days, I go really easy. Or if I feel like, man, I just can't, go do a big mountain day today because my quads are wrecked and this could lead to injury, I opt for a flatter day. I stop chasing numbers and I stop chasing times and I stop chasing these, I guess, competitive thoughts in my head, and I listen to my body and I do what's best for my health. And that means having days where I am competitive and like, yeah, my guard is up, I'm dialed and I'm ready to go and I'm on fire. And then there's other days where it's like, nah, just let that guard down, relax, go out for an easy run. If you need to walk, you need to walk. If you need to, just run a 10-minute mile pace, that's okay. Case in point, like last weekend, I did a big, almost 7-hour training run in the mountains, got over 10,000 feet of vert. And it was a specific long run that was scheduled, there to be to get me ready for Trans Grand Canaria, it was supposed to be hard. It was supposed to wreck me a bit. But then Sunday, Monday, and even yesterday, Tuesday, I kept it super chill after. Like Sunday was like really, really slow. Monday was a little bit faster, but still super slow. And both those days were flat. And then I kept it another flatter day yesterday with maybe just a little bit faster, but still super easy. That way I could be ready and reap those adaptations and like be in a position where I'm healthy, coming out of it healthy, I'm coming out of it stronger, and I'm able to recover from that big effort. And I think a lot of the times, like in the past, or a lot of people, is what they do is they just think they have to be on every single day. So they'll do a big day like that, and then they'll come back Sunday and it's supposed to be an easy day, but it's harder than it's supposed to be. And then Monday they'll do a workout, and then Tuesday they'll do another long run. And it's like, and then all of a sudden they're injured and they're wondering why. It's because they didn't let the body adapt. They didn't let the body recover, and they didn't listen to the body, you know?
Do you think a lot of that is due to like we see people racing all the time and there are people doing, 5, 6, 7 ultras a year, and it's like you see people doing it, but you don't see the downside of the people that can't handle that kind of capacity?
And we only see the highlights, to be honest with you. Like we only see the hard runs, and we only pay attention and focus on the hard runs. Or we only see, the video of whoever out there just crushing on the trail, and we think, oh man, they're just going so hard. When realistically, you're not seeing the easy runs that they're putting in. You're not seeing the recovery. You're not seeing the sleep. Nobody's highlighting those things.
The rest days.
Yeah, the rest days. And also, like, a lot of the people that are doing that, those things and posting about those things, like that's their full-time job. So they have all day to recover from that. They're not having to be on their feet all day working a job or balancing this or balancing that. And so I think sometimes or we just get so focused on what everybody else is doing, thinking that's what we have to do, when realistically you just have to do what is best for you and what's best for your health. And you can't fall into those traps because what Rod Farvard and Jim Walmsley and Francesco Pupi are doing, not everybody can handle those things, and it's okay. Like you can still be very, very good, not doing that and just backing off just a little bit. And also you're only seeing the highlights.
Totally. To speak to you're only seeing the highlights part, it's ironic. Amelia Boone is in my kitchen right now about to sauna with Kate. And about 10 years ago, she created the Rest Day Brags Instagram account where it was like that specific, you only see the highlights. Why can't we talk about the pizzas and the easy days and rest days? So we'll have to link to that and highlight some of the fun stuff.
Yeah, I'm not saying you shouldn't go hard, you shouldn't go long. Like there are days when you need to put in the work and you need to do it. Like Francesco Pupi always talks about, putting in the big days and bringing back high mileage, and that's in. And it's like, yes, there are times in a block, there are days when that needs to happen, and it's okay to work hard. But then there's also days where it just needs to be chill, and you need to rest, and you need to have an off season, and you need to know when to do both.
Do you think you have to make these mistakes enough times to finally believe it? Or is it like you hear people like you saying it and other athletes enough times that like an amateur runner might finally agree that they need to respect the work as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think one, you need to put your ego down. And that's the biggest thing and you need to stop paying attention to what everybody's doing. You need to do what's best for you. But yeah, I think like a lot of it stems from you get injured, in the moment you're thinking, oh man, I'm getting fitter. And then all of a sudden you get injured and then you're like, okay, maybe I should learn from this. And, you get injured enough times and it sucks to be injured. It sucks to not be able to do what you love to do. You realize like, yeah, I just need to calm it down just a little bit and find that sweet spot, because everybody's got a sweet spot. And a lot of that is centered around whatever else you're doing in life. Maybe have a full-time job, you're a dad or a mom, and then you're also volunteering in your community and you have this and that going on, right? Maybe you might not be able to handle as much as somebody else that doesn't have all that going on. And that's okay. There's a sweet spot that everybody has. where they can be at their best. And, there's a time and place for it too. Like, I'm not saying that I won't do high mileage, because I am, and I will. But also my goal, say, for this year is to win UTMB. So I ain't going to be doing like extremely high mileage in January if my goal is in August. Each block is going to build on each other. This block, yeah, I'll get some high weeks in there, but then the next block might be a little bit higher, and then the next block might be a little bit higher. And sometimes you just got to be patient. And then, of course, after UTMB, I will take an off season where the volume will be lower. And like case in point, after UTMB this year, I had to back off the mileage a bit, going into the fall. And a lot of that was due to thinking about my schedule for this upcoming year and wanting to build block after block. So like I did Kodiak, right, in October. I did the Thailand race in December. And I was only running 60 to 80 miles a week during that whole blocks of training before Kodiak and before Thailand. And I won Kodiak, and then I podiumed at Thailand and did really well. Was I in perfect, great shape? No, I could have been in better shape, but I was in good enough shape for that time of the year. And then I've built that up during this block to where I'm hitting, 90 to 120 mile weeks. And then that'll probably build just a little bit, not extreme amounts, but a little bit more for my next block. And then the next block after that's my UTMB block. So that'll build just a tiny bit more. And it's okay to be patient and to have these gradual builds. Like, I think I listened to a podcast last year with Seth Ruling where he talked a lot about this. And I found it very interesting, where Seth talked about how in marathoning and in every other sport, cycling, marathoning, all these, professional endurance sports, they take a more gradual approach and a more patient approach to their schedules and how they set up their schedules and their training throughout. And they only add volume in increments, like very small increments throughout the year, so that they're peaking at the right time and they're also sustainable throughout the year. And there's stepping stones along the way. And he said in ultra running, that tends to not be the case. Like, people don't take these gradual approaches. They just go from like running, very low to very high, and then very low again, and then very high again. It's like, no, like why can't we take a more gradual, patient approach throughout the entire year and build a little bit on each other? And it doesn't have to be these massive, big steps that you're taking, because a lot of the time that leads to injury, and you just have to be smarter with how you build it.
Do you think some of that is like a short-term perspective of all these people are looking to accomplish things and either keep or get contracts, and so they're looking for the next big win, or they're looking for their next, potential opportunity?
Yeah, that's part of it. And I think it's desperate training. There's a lot of people that are very desperate, and they want this contract and they want it now because they want to be able to quit their job and they want to be a full-time runner. And they think that's what it's going to take for them to get to that next level, when that's not always the case. And honestly, if you took that more gradual, patient, sustainable approach, you're going to have a better career and you're going to be less injured, and then you're going to be winning more races. And then brands are going to see that, and because brands love consistency. There's a reason why, like, I've been in the sport for 10 years. There's a reason why Jim's been in the sport for 11, 12 years, it's because we've consistently performed every single year. And, we get a big win almost every single year. And it's just that consistency over time that's kept us those contracts. There's a lot of guys that we've seen that have come into the sport, and ladies as well, where they've had these big wins, and then they get impatient and they get desperate with their training, thinking they need to do more. And then all of a sudden they fizzle out super quick. They're around for 2 or 3 years, but then the brands are like, well, you're not really winning anymore. You're not really doing much. So why are we going to keep you around? And it's like, the consistency is way more important, I would say, and the sustainability.
Totally. So on a very non-professional level, I'm signed up for Big Alta 50K, and I've had a hip injury for the last, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And I just finally got back over 50 miles a week. but the race is in a month and a half, and like 50K is very far from me. So within the like context of my own training and fitness and lack of a desire to, crash train, my goal is to drop down to the 30K and set myself up for a really strong training day instead of a pounding 50K effort. Again, that's very far for me, and risk injury and coming back from that, for a race in March and have a setback for the whole year.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds smart to me, but also I would say, and I would ask this to any of my athletes, so how good was your training before that injury happened, right? If you had a really good training block before that injury happened and you built all this base and this fitness up, and then during those 5 or 6 weeks where you had the injury, you were still able to maintain, you're not just going to lose all of that fitness that you build up. Like, fitness doesn't go away that quickly. And that's still there. It's sitting there, and it might be a bit dormant and it needs to be reminded that it's still there. But you can maintain during periods of time, and then all of a sudden you're healthy again, you boost up, you maybe do a workout or so that triggers it, and all of a sudden all that work that you did before comes back. And a lot of the times it's in here, it's mentally, are you confident enough in yourself? Because physically you're probably just fine because you built a bunch of fitness, you maintained, and now it's back. But mentally and confidence wise, are you confident enough that you can go do that? And are you confident in your ability and your experience and your base that you built before? So I think you got to look at those two things. And if you feel like, yeah, I'm not completely over this injury yet, confidence wise, I'm not there, then yeah, drop down to the 30K and it's completely fine. Like, we don't always have to run the longest distance or the longer race to reach that finish line. Like, sometimes it's okay to run a bit shorter race and it's completely fine, especially it's an early season race. But I would say also, like, if you can gain that confidence back and you are 100% over that injury and you want to run the 50K, then that fitness will probably be there. It's not just going to go away.
Yeah, it's a good point. I did a workout today and I crushed. It was like my best session in a very long time. So I surprised myself with where the fitness is at. It was a 12 by 1 minute on, 2 off, like 5K-ish plus 2 miles steady afterwards. So it was a big piece of work, again, for me relative to what I've been doing. And looking back last year, I was injured in May and June, and I came back and did a 40 miler at the end of August. For me, it's like a risk assessment of like taking a risk in March versus taking a risk at the end of August. And like, I love summer adventures, and I don't want to make any risk of a setback. But you're right, it's probably all a little bit in my head, and there is the potential to do that 50K.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes when we have breaks from injury or whatever, it can actually help us more than we think, because it gives our body a bit of rest to adapt to all the workload that we've put in. I've had really good performances off of injuries or breaks, and as long as you can maintain that confidence, and also, like, I guess we got to realize too is, like, experience matters. This isn't your first rodeo. It's not like your first race, right? It's not your first workout. Like, you have banked years and years and years of experience and also years of training, and that bank is still there. Like, you still have money in that bank and it doesn't just completely go away. That helps too, like, to have a full bank, from years of
Sure.
experience.
One of the other ways of creating this durability is something that I've learned from you as well, and that's the food and nutrition and fueling side of things. We've shared many meals together, and we both love to eat, and it's a huge part of what enables that healthy work to be absorbed. Talk to me about how that plays a role in your training and life, and I'm sure we'll get into talking about precision too.
Yeah, I think recently, like, one of the things that's really helped me a lot with health and just sustainable training and feeling better and stronger has been fueling most of my runs. Like, when I was younger, I didn't fuel very many runs at all. I would go out for sometimes 3-hour sessions and not eat anything and not even bring, like, water or anything with me. And it's just what I did, right? I was coming from the collegiate background where you didn't eat much and it's just what you did. And I realized that that was actually not helping me at all. One, I wasn't actually getting the carbohydrates and the nutrients and the hydration that I needed, during my runs to help me not only have a good session, feel stronger in the run, but also it was hurting my recovery because all of a sudden I'm drained, from that big session or that big effort, and then I'm having to catch up, and that can be very, very hard. And if you keep draining yourself every single run and you get to the end of a block, you just feel completely drained because you keep going down. And so like one thing that has really helped me is focusing on fueling most of my runs. Like any run that's over 90 minutes, which is most of my runs, I'm fueling. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm doing like 100% race fuel on everyone. If it's
Yeah,
a
you're not
key
doing
session,
120 grams an hour for a 12-mile easy run.
yeah, well, I've never done 120. I only do like 90 to 100. There is a limit, I feel. But anyways, yeah, so like some of the runs, like if I know if this is going to be a super easy day, I'm going to be doing a lot of hiking or something, I might only do 60 grams an hour. But 60 grams an hour is better than nothing. And then I'll do, proper hydration. And I've realized over the years that I do need to up my hydration. Like I think a lot of us think we're a lot lower than we actually are on hydration. And I've heard so many people talk about this recently on podcasts that they've been carrying more liquids on them and they're just feeling better. I've been upping my hydration, and that means carrying a bit of extra weight with me. Like I'll carry an extra bottle of water in the back of my pack or something, or sometimes two extra bottles of water if that's what I have to do. And yes, it's not very fun to carry extra weight, but it's okay. It makes you stronger. And a lot of the time, it is just as heavy as maybe the mandatory kit that you're going to have to carry in your vest anyways. But yeah, I any run over 90 minutes, I'm eating and I'm drinking and I'm focusing on that fueling. And that's helping me in so many ways, and especially with recovery. Then I feel better the next day and I'm able to actually get another good run in the next day. And then I'm also not low on my caloric intake for the day because that all adds into your daily caloric intake
Right.
as well. And if you're eating, like you should be, three good big meals a day with maybe some snacks throughout the day, like then you end up hitting your caloric intake every day and you're able to sustain that training so much better. And so for me, like that is one focus, is fueling my runs. And I say the second focus is not missing a meal. Even if I'm doing a big session that day, I make sure that I get three good, solid, strong meals a day where it gives me, a good amount of carbs, a good amount of protein, a good amount of fats, whatever it is that I need to focus on at whatever that meal is and where it sets in my race. So even on those big days when I do a 7-hour training run, I still, make sure I get a good solid breakfast in. Maybe I go out for my run. Of course, because it's 7 hours, it takes up a lot of the day. But then when I get done with that run, I eat my lunch. And then maybe like shortly after that, I'll eat a dinner. So I'll eat two big meals back to back. And then the big meal in the morning too. And it's just making sure that I'm getting all the fuel I need to get in for the day.
What prompted the decision to add fueling to any runs over 90 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was my coach, Robbie Britton, brought it up to me. And a lot of it was starting to work with precision fuel and hydration. So Robbie had been working with precision for years. And so he connected me with precision and was like, hey, man, these guys can really help you, because he could tell that maybe my fueling was off and I wasn't fueling my runs and my races like I needed to. So he connected me with precision. Precision ended up connecting me with some of their sports nutritionists and some of the scientists that work within the company. And I started talking to them and they started, recommending this, and they started recommending, what I should be doing in each run. And we started off pretty low. Like we started off with, just try and get 30 grams an hour to see if your body can handle that in your stomach and train your stomach. And so I started off doing 30 grams an hour, and then I started doing 60 grams an hour. And then I got up to where I was doing 90 grams an hour. And I tried, 120 grams an hour, but I didn't feel like it was necessary and it wasn't really helping me. And honestly, like I do think there is a limit, and a lot of that will depend on the effort that you're putting in on that run, your size, different things like that. And it just felt like that was not needed to go that high. And I do feel like a lot of people talk about, these crazy massive numbers that they're hitting. Is it necessary? I don't 100% think so. Is it helping them? Maybe a little bit, but we don't 100% know. Is it sustainable for a long race? Probably not for most people. And everybody's a little bit different too. And also, like, the other thing I look at too is, like, I think a lot of the time people are saying those big numbers just because it looks good and it sounds good. Again, it's the highlights that, people talk about. But I recently listened to a podcast with Andy Blow, one of the founders of Precision. And he talked about how, we all think there's this secret sauce or this magic to it all, when really a lot of it boils down to doing the basics right. And if that means like hitting 60 grams an hour, but doing that more often and being consistent with that, that's way more important than going out there and trying to hit 200 grams an hour and thinking that that's necessary. And also it's doing the basics right with your training. Like, you can have as many carbohydrates as you possibly want, but if you're not putting in the miles and you're not doing the strength work and you're not doing the workouts, and you're not doing the basic things, you're not being efficient in the aid stations, you're not like pacing the race properly, all those high carbohydrates aren't going to help you.
Yeah, the carbs
right?
aren't going to run the race for you. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to do the basics right first, and you need to focus on that first. And then once you have that foundation, you have all those things down, then you can start think about adding things here and there. But yeah, like, Precision has helped me a ton. They have completely changed the game for me, if I have to be honest with you.
Yeah. My agenda with this podcast is exactly what you just said, right? Do the basics extremely well and kind of forget everything else, right? It's like nail the sleep, nail the fueling, and do the work. If you do that, you're 85, 90% of the way there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's always little things that you can add, but you need to get the basics done first and focus on those things first. And again, it comes back to like gradually putting those things in instead of just rushing and being like, I'm going to, go extreme on everything. I think we live in a society of extremes, and a lot of the time that can roll over into us, and we think that extremes are necessary and they're the things that make the biggest difference, when really they're not. It's the day-to-day consistency, it's the gradual approach, and it's those type of things that make the biggest difference over time.
Definitely. So a couple of years ago, you introduced me to Precision as well, and I've been using it for the last, I guess, 2 or 3 years ever since. For me, it's like every run that's 75 minutes or longer gets at least one gel. And yeah, I'm in the like 85 gram an hour camp, 85, 90. Haven't really needed to go above that. And I've tried it and it's, not worked out well. But even just doing, a gel and some drink mix on a 90-minute workout is helping with recovery and helping for the next day.
Yeah. The other thing I would say too is, like, I think a lot of the time we focus on the in race or the in training nutrition, and we talking about these numbers and this and that we have to hit. But a lot of the times too, I think we need to go into these runs fueled. We need to go into these runs hydrated, and we need to come out of those runs and replenish and refuel and get what we need to rebuild the muscle that we broke down or to rehydrate. And that's just as important as the in competition or the in training nutrition that we always talk about. And like, that's one thing that Precision has helped me as well. Most of their products are in competition products, but they've also, taught me how to preload, to make sure that I'm getting the proper hydration in before, the proper electrolytes in before, to make sure that I go into that run feeling good and already in a good spot, so my body can handle it. And a lot of this is, we're still learning as we go, and I'm still learning as I go. Like last weekend, like I said, that big long run I did, I thought I had my hydration down, but I ended up not drinking enough. And I realized, man, I need to up that up just a little bit more. And I felt it, towards the end of the run, I was feeling a bit dehydrated, and, my urine showed that I was dehydrated. And it's like, well, I still need to fix that. I still need to work on that. And it's okay. It's okay to not get it right all the time, but like, learn from those mistakes and try and, get that down. And one thing I did is after I got done with the run, I messaged my guy who I work with at Precision. James Hatton is his name, and he's one of the best. He's crewed me at most of my races, and he helps me a lot with my nutrition and hydration. I messaged him and said, "Hey man, like this is what happened." I gave him some of my numbers, and we were like, "Okay, we need to up the hydration." And he worked with me. And like that's the thing, is Precision's really good not just with their products, but they're great with helping you. Like they have all their resources on their website. You know, you can go to their knowledge hub where they have so much research they've done, articles they've written about all these things that we're talking about: hydration, electrolytes, carbohydrates. You can set up calls and schedule meetings with some of their sports scientists. You can also do their little planner.
The planner.
They have a planner on their website where you can plan out your nutrition for a training run or for a race. And like they're really into doing all that and giving that assistance when needed, which is awesome. And then you can use their incredible products, or you can use other products if that's what you need to do. But, you know, it'll definitely help you.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. It's what works for one person doesn't work for everyone, but it's worth trying a bunch of different things to figure out what works for your body. And once you figured that out, it really can have a quite outsized impact on the ability to run longer distances for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I DNF'd a lot of races at the beginning of my career, and it wasn't because of fitness. It was because of hydration and fueling. I didn't have it down. This was pre-Precision. Like this is before I worked with them and I knew anything about hydration and nutrition. And you know, I didn't really know what I know now. And I went into these races extremely fit, had put in these massive blocks of training, you know, was feeling on top of the world fitness wise. And then all of a sudden the hydration took me out of the race because I wasn't hydrating enough, or the nutrition took me out of the race. And it sucks to be in that situation. Like I would say, don't put yourself in that situation. Like don't be the fittest you've ever been in your life, you know, and put in all this training and all this sacrifice to get to these start lines and then have your race ruined because you don't have your hydration and nutrition down. And the only reason you don't have it down is because you didn't take the time to work on it, or you didn't, you know, do the proper research, or you didn't reach out to people that can help you. Like that will help you so much. Like you can be the fittest in the world, but if you don't have your hydration, you don't have your nutrition down, you will not have the fuel necessary to be able to utilize that fitness. And believe me, I've been there. It sucks. It really sucks to be in that situation and have to be pulled out of a race because you're severely dehydrated. And then they have to take you to the hospital and put you on an IV because, you know, you're borderline in rhabdomyosis and stuff like that. And it just sucks. It sucks to be in that situation. And sometimes it can be quite dangerous. You know, it's not like, I mean, the sport's safe for the most part, but it can get dangerous if you're not taking care of yourself and, you know, you're pushing yourself to your limits. And if you're not replenishing and giving your body what it needs, it can get pretty dangerous.
Yeah, particularly because it's one of those, you can control this, like control the controllables. You can't control the weather, but you can control what you're putting into your body to help you do the thing. I'm gonna have a handful more conversations about sports nutrition with some dietitians and other resources on this podcast. For some reason, those are the most popular episodes on this show. And so it tells me people want more of that information. So more to come for sure.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the biggest reason why most people have bad races and DNF, you know, and so everybody's trying to figure that out and get that down. And I would say like it can be a learning process and it can take time to get that completely down. Like I didn't like right when I started working with Precision, it's not like, you know, 2 or 3 weeks after I
Overnight. Yeah.
started working with them, it all of a sudden was magic and it worked. It helped pretty quick, to be honest with you, but it wasn't perfect. And it's probably taken me 2 or 3, maybe 4 years to get it to a point now where I feel really confident in my nutrition and hydration and feel like it's not going to be an issue on race day. And a lot of that is also due to practicing it in most of my training. Like on my 7-hour run, you can see the pictures on my Strava and on my Instagram, but on my 7-hour run last weekend, I literally set up the back of my car as an aid station and I had all my fuel in there and I had backup fuel just in case the the other fuel wasn't going down, and I had everything set out. People made comments like, man, that's a lot of money in the back of that car. Like, that's a lot of precision. And it's like, yeah, it was, but it was worth it. And I wouldn't say I do that every run. Yeah, I do that in a lot of runs, but those main key runs where it's maybe a kind of a dress rehearsal or the biggest run that you're going to do in a block to get ready for race day, that should be the run that you really practice those things, and you spend the money if that's what's necessary. Like for me, I get it for free. I'm very lucky. But I would say, like, even this, I encourage my athletes. I say, hey, it's worth it to spend a little bit of extra money to buy the fuel you need to get it completely down, because think about how much money you're spending to go out to these races, to sign up for these races. And like, the last thing you want to do is have to drop out of the race because you didn't have your fueling and your hydration down. So spend that extra money to buy the fuel you need, practice it in your big long run, do a dress rehearsal, set up your car as an aid station if that's what you need to do, and really get it all down so that you're confident with it on race day and you know that you're probably not going to run into stomach issues. I'm not saying that you won't, it could happen, but you can eliminate that for the most part. And like you said, control the controllables.
Definitely. Hayden, what's firing you up for this year? What are you stoked on?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, like lately, I've just been kind of putting my head down and getting to work and like just kind of focusing on like putting the work in necessary to like have a great year and to have fun with it. And yeah, that's just kind of what I've been doing lately. I am doing more of like a mountain schedule this year. I'm not going to be focusing on Western states like I have in the past. Felt like I need a little bit of a break from that. And also I need to learn some things and get tougher physically and mentally. And I feel like some of these mountain races allow me to do that because they're a bit longer than Western states. And also like they just require a lot of like strength and like stronger training. I've been focusing a lot on strength training as well. I've been focusing on a lot of things to just really get myself physically and mentally stronger, not just for this year, but for years to come. And so this year I'm going to be running Trans Grand Canaria the beginning of March. I'm headed out there actually this weekend to do 4 weeks out on the island and get ready for the race. And then I'm going to do Lavaredo the end of June. And then I'm going to do UTMB the end of August. And that's going to be my main focus. And I believe that I can win all of these races. And I'm going to put myself in a position to be able to win all these races. But at the same time, like the main focus of these races is to get me stronger, both physically and mentally, and help me, this year and into the future. And so, yeah, that's my main focus of this year. I'm really excited about the schedule. I think it's going to be really, really fun. And I'm excited to be in the mountains more. I love being in the mountains as much as possible. And this is going to allow me to do that. I'm embracing the poles and been using them a lot in training. And yeah, it's a slower pace, in the training, but it's been awesome. It's been fun. It's been exciting. And I'm a bit tired right now, of course, because I'm in some big, big training weeks, but I'm having fun with it and I'm enjoying it. And I can't wait to put my best foot forward this year and see what I can do in these races.
Cool. What does the growth of mental strength look like for you? How are you tangibly focusing on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just like focusing on being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And I experienced this at UTMB this last year where it was very, very cold. I got, very cold in the race and borderline hypothermic, and I didn't have the proper gear. And in essence, I wasn't fit enough going into the race too, coming off of a big injury. But I think I kind of broke down, not just physically, but mentally, not being able to handle the elements and be tough enough to get through it and like work my way through it, not just physically, but mentally. And so a lot of that has been like embrace the elements, embrace the mountains, embrace the long climbs, embrace these things, embrace the poles, do things that are maybe a bit challenging. Of course, be smart with it and keep myself healthy, but just be tough, man. And, have a little bit more of that, I guess, tough mountain mindset about things, and there's a lot of athletes that I really look up to that are that way, and they grew up or they live in very harsh climates and it doesn't affect them. And they're just like, yeah, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to bundle up. I'm going to wear the right gear, and I'm just going to go out and do what I need to do. And like, that's kind of been my mindset this year is just be tough, don't be soft, and yeah, embrace it all, and, see what you're capable of doing, because I feel like I grew up that way. I grew up being tough, and my dad taught me that way, taught me how to work hard. I grew up kind of in the country. That's just kind of what we did. But I feel like, and at the beginning of my career, I think I was that way, and I've been that way for most of my career. But I feel like, with some of these injuries that I've dealt with, they've maybe lost a bit of confidence, or lost a bit of toughness because of the injury, and worrying about the injury, and the injury kind of like being a crutch, or being something that, I think about a lot of the time. And now that I'm healthy again, I need to get over that and gain that confidence back, and just be in a situation where it's okay. Like, I don't have to think about that. I don't have to worry about that. And yes, I need to be smart with my training, and smart with my race prep, and smart with everything like we talked about earlier. But I also just, in certain situations, I need to be tough and go back to those roots and be like, this sport is not easy. This sport is hard. And sometimes you have to be hard to overcome those hard situations. And it's okay at certain times to be that way.
I love it. Well, we'll be rooting for you, and we'll see you out there. So Hayden, appreciate the chat, and I hope to share some more miles or a sauna session with you again here soon.
Yeah. Take care, man. Talk to you later. Thanks.